Hidden Object Guru here with a look at some of the trivia, goofs, and other fun stuff we saw in The Devil in Me. While there's no way to escape H.H. Holmes at the start of the game, if Marie buys the bath milk, she can clonk him on the head with the bottle, and Jeff can elect to punch him in the face rather than running away. Too bad he didn't finish the job. In this scene, Dumet is reminiscing over the time he spent with Manny Sherman, and the player even gets to hear the conversation on tape. But Dumet clearly presses the stop button on the mini tape recorder. It was already set to play when he walked up to it, and you can see it stopping again at the end of the scene. When Jamie goes to switch breakers on during the fuse box puzzles, the lights turn on a few frames before she flips the switches. Supermassive Games is based in England, and while they're pretty good about localizing the vernacular when they make games set in America, occasionally they slip up a little. For example, this secret refers to an answer phone, which is called an answering machine in America, and gruff Chicago contractors tend not to use the word whilst. Finally, this diary entry refers to people setting up a tannoy, which is the name of a British brand of public address systems so ubiquitous that it's become synonymous with the concept, like Kleenex or Band-Aid in North America. In the US, they're just called PA systems. You know you've reached the nadir of nitpickery when you're essentially just quoting Alan Partridge. This secret description says that Joseph Morello was lured to the island based on curiosity about Manny Sherman. Now, while it's true that he was writing a book about Sherman when he was killed, and that's likely why Dumet targeted him, the email correspondence only references H.H. Holmes. Also, the miniature image of the secret depicted here lists the date of the email as March 16th, 2021, while in the game, it's October 14th, 2022. Perhaps this goes all the way back to the rumored original plan of bringing out a game every 6 months or so? Fall 2019 for Medan, Spring 2020 for Little Hope, Fall 2020 for House of Ashes, and Spring 2021 for The Devil in Me. Speaking of the Morello letter, it specifically refers to the limo picking the family up on a Friday, and Charlie's statement about how the crew is supposed to have the weekend off makes it clear that they're also meant to be arriving on a Friday. But the dates of their arrivals listed in the sign-in book, October 19th and 26th, 2022, are both Wednesdays. Those days were last Fridays in 2018 and will next be Fridays in 2029. Was 2018 when this part of the game's script was first worked on? This scene of the killer walking around while his mother's corpse talks to him is a reference to the Alfred Hitchcock film Psycho, which is also about a deranged victim of parental abuse putting on a costume and going on a killing spree in and around a hotel. Although in that film the voice is solely in the killer's head, whereas here, it's a recording. Dumet uses an audio recording of Morello to ask the team to give their phones in the limousine, creating the clear implication that he's the one driving the car. Yet no one is surprised when Morello, pretending to be Dumet, is the one who pilots the ferry over. Speaking of the limo, we can see the team loading their bags and a few small equipment cases into the trunk before getting in, and then bringing them to the dock. When everything is unpacked at the hotel later, huge trunks of equipment have arrived. Where did these come from? They weren't in the limo, and they weren't on the ferry. Directly under the painting of the execution of H.H. Holmes, there's a super obvious trapdoor. It's the one that later drops Mark into the basement. Speaking of that painting, it's based on a sketch of Holmes' execution, which was made by a newspaper sketch artist named Newmar, who was actually there. Isn't it nice of them to tuck the noose away while the guy is giving his speech? Why make him think about his death by having it swing gently back and forth behind him, as visually dramatic as that would be for the audience? In a nice touch, Dumet uses the cigarettes he stole from Charlie's bag as a lure, both in the bar and in the crematorium, so Charlie is just trying to get his property back. Prairie brand cigarettes also turn up in the fake interrogation room, as the brand Manny Sherman's corpse is smoking. Maybe Charlie had more than one pack stolen? Because at least one gets destroyed in the crematorium. Or perhaps Charlie and Dumet just happened to smoke the same brand. It's a little weird that the Maryland retirement home that Hector puts his mother Lucinda in has Prairie in its name, since Maryland is like 1,000 miles from the closest prairie. Wait, was it a retirement home for smokers run by the Prairie Cigarette Company? And that's why it's not a surprise that she died of lung cancer? If Dumet drags Erin out of the dark room, the other characters will look around baffled about where she might have gone. Could it be the obvious blank section of wall that Dumet didn't even bother to put a baseboard in front of? Do you think? While the fake walls are very professionally installed and well hidden, the observation mirrors are simply placed in front of crudely smashed holes in the wall, suggesting that Dumet did this work himself between March and November 2017, lest he make a construction crew uncomfortable with the idea of filming people in hotel rooms. While it seems like Dumet simply teleports out of the trap to scare Jamie, the game clearly sets up just how he makes his escape. First, on the way to lure Dumet, Jamie finds this moving wall that is not on the computer screen, clearly establishing that there are more mechanical walls than we know about. Then, when controlling player 2 or playing the curator's cut, we can clearly see Dumet operate a switch hidden in the painting before the camera cuts out. The door's opening might be plausible, but this shot, where we go from the hallway being well lit and the wall being closed, to super dark and the wall being open, is kind of a huge cheat. How did she not hear that moving or feel the ground shake or air shift? These walls are not subtle in the least. This line is likely both a factual statement about Dumet's hotel and a reference to the fact that the real H.H. Holmes never actually finished the third floor of his building, and the World's Fair Hotel never actually opened or had any guests. In this scene, Erin suffers from an asthma attack, and Dumet proves to have her inhaler. One question: how did he get it? Just a couple of hours earlier, Erin suffered an asthma attack triggered by the dusty hotel, causing her to pull out her inhaler. I find it super hard to believe that she would then go wandering around the hotel with Charlie without bringing it with her, considering how dusty the whole place is. When Kate and Mark are talking about her best friend being killed by a serial killer, he notes that they have matching nails, and Kate mentions that they always got them done at the same time. Here's the picture they're looking at. Are they even wearing nail polish in this photo? We see one hand from each of them, and it seems like if their nails are painted at all, they're painted a pink so faint that it matches their skin tone perfectly. It would have been neat if they both had black nail polish, and we could then interpret the fact that Kate still wears black nail polish to this day as a memorial to her lost friend. When you're walking through the Garden of Dumet statues, it's pretty clear which one is really him. Dumet is not doing a great job at the mannequin challenge. If you catch him at it, he immediately gives up and starts chasing you. When the trucker spots survivors on the road, he stops the truck by jamming his foot down on the gas pedal? Dumet recorded this room as being called the Pendulum Room, despite the fact that it's clearly built around a scythe. The address where the limo picks up the Morello family and presumably the Architects of Murder crew, under a railroad bridge at South Wallace Avenue and West 63rd Street, is the address of the H.H. Holmes murder castle. It's honestly a little weird that none of the characters noticed that, considering that they were making a show about him and all live in Chicago. Wouldn't Mark at some point have taken some footage of the post office that now sits at this address? Here's what that railroad bridge looks like in real life. At the start of the first Mark chapter, the player can find this room and have Mark be a little puzzled by it. As you can see from the phone, cage, and restraint table, this is the very same room where the Ultimatum chapter is set. If the player chooses to disobey Dumet in the Ultimatum chapter, Mark will say that he doesn't know where he is, which is weird, because he knows that he's on an island in Lake Michigan with a ferry and a lighthouse on both shores, being murdered by a man calling himself Grantham Dumet, but who is, in reality, probably FBI Special Agent Hector Monday. You know you're about to die anyway, so just go for it. Whether the player elects to buy a necklace for Marie or a pocket watch for Jeff, the item in question winds up, along with Marie's ring, in Dumet's display. When you go to reload a different chapter, the game asks players if they want to start a new save file, overwriting the existing one. But the button at the bottom asks them if they want to override the previous file. This error was actually in other games in the series as well. In this scene, the team has just watched Charlie possibly burn to death, and then the cameras went dead, what with them being burned up in the fire and all. Despite the switch over to static, in close-up all of the characters are mysteriously lit by the golden glow of the fire that was on screen in the previous scene. To unlock this door, players need to find a series of wine bottles with numbers circled in certain colors, or they can just guess that it would likely be the year H.H. Holmes died, leaving a legacy for someone else to take up. Here on the sign-up sheet, you can see that a couple of shifts were worked by one R. Pickman. Presumably this is Richard Upton Pickman of the H.P. Lovecraft story Pickman's Model. It's a famously delightful story about a guy who draws celebrated pictures of ghouls. Only it turns out that, spoiler alert, he was just taking photographs of ghouls and painting copies of them. I've been the Hidden Object Guru, thanks for watching. If there's any topics you'd like to see covered here on the channel, please drop them in the comment section below the video. We'll see you back here for more dark pictures, but until then, au revoir.